Over to you, Patrice.
Okay. Sorry, do you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, good. So thank you, everybody, and hello. Well, to start, maybe we can start with two questions that you may already have. One should be, who am I? Who is the person speaking to you? And the second, why such a subject? So let's go and let's do first thing first, why such a subject? Actually, it's interesting, but there are some commonly heard data. I'm not sure that these data are real statistics, but they have a certain truth in them. And one of these data is 86 of successful projects are based on good technical solution. And the other one is that 80% of failed projects are also based on good technical solution. So as I said, I'm not sure these figures are completely correct, but I think they really display a true reality. So where is the difference? Where does it come? Well, of course, things like human acceptance, goodwill, if it is a software, the correct utilization of the product. Well, all these are non-technical factors, and these are the subject of today, as they are chiefly important if you want to have your project a real success. So this being said, let's briefly present myself. So you have a picture of me, you have me live on a small video, but just to explain, I was first an IT developer. That's the way I started my working. And then I became an IT trainer and a training manager of what became the #1 IT and PC training company in France with more than 50 classrooms in Paris, Lyon, and Brussels. And then I became a project manager for at least 10 or 15 years and ran many IT projects in database environment or collaborative environments. And then I became a change manager around 2007, and I have done so since. And I'm the director of a French company named Key Partners, who is active in France and Belgium. And I love doing that, and it really helps company and it really helps project managers to make a success by providing good buying from the end user, goodwill, good understanding also of the solution that has been created basically by you. And last but not the least, I'm also the author of the book, Relax, 6 Steps to Overcoming Resistance to Change in Your Project, that you can find in libraries like Amazon or others. And today, what I do mainly is I help project managers and companies to make their project a success by ensuring end user goodwill, buying, as I said, and engagement. So, this being said, let's start by defining what change management really is. We heard so much about change management, and 10 years ago, probably we heard very little. And sometimes people wonder, what is really change management? Isn't it simply renaming training? Maybe you wonder, is it a marketing concept that simply packages training and communication in a new buzzword that is called change management? Well, if that is what you consider, I can tell you there are missing bricks in the wall you are building, because it is way more than that. Now, if I want to explain that, if I manage change, if you manage project, I think it could be a good idea to review what manage means. Because managing is not helping, is not doing your best, and there is a very precise definition that I'm going to display on the screen. Should be here now. To manage is to bring about or succeed in accomplishing, sometimes despite difficulty or hardship. And it comes from the Latin manus, the hand. And for the French speaking here, I think the best translation of manager would be quelqu'un qui prend les choses en main. Unfortunately, for French-speaking people that are here, we can still hear from time to time translation of the word management to gérer. What I mean is to manage is not passive. It is not a simple administrative or clerical work. It is very active. If you manage an IT project, you succeed in creating your software or installing your infrastructure or whatever the project, sometimes despite difficulty or hardship. And I'm sure you will agree that there will be some. And that is why a project manager is so important. He is the one who will bring the project about. He is the one who will succeed in accomplishing the project. No project succeeds without a strong and dedicated project manager, who make things go right. Now, this being said, then what is change management? Well, it is very simply to bring about change or succeed in accomplishing the change, sometimes despite difficulties or hardship. It is a way to change behaviors and habits of people. And that is exactly what change manager do or should do. So let's carry on a little bit. There are always two parts in an IT project. We have the technical part, or not IT only, by the way. We have the technical part, which means ensuring all work fine with no bug and with the expected quality. And we are sure that if that is not in, your project will never succeed. And then we have the human part. The best tool you create, if badly used, or if not used, or if refused, will never bring the expected ROI. If this is not in, your project will never succeed. So whoever is made responsible for a project needs to handle the technical and the human aspects of a project. Let me give you an example. I'm going to take an SAP example. It was a big retailer who was implementing an SAP in his hypermarkets. And one of the part of the project was to calculate the optimum surface that each product should have on the display. You know, it's open and anybody can buy. And before that, the calculation was the job of some people. Well, do you think that these people will easily accept this new software with no question, no query, no emotion, no disagreement? Do you think avoiding a real communication of the subject is possible? Of course not. Well, unfortunately, that was what management was doing. Or another SAP example. A big company had all his local facilities helping customer, and they decided to change that by concentrating all the customer service on all the customer queries in a new call center supposed to handle all the customer questions. How do you keep the earlier quality of service? Because it was great. And that is what change management should do. We don't want to give bad message to the end customer. And unfortunately, few are the project managers who really handle this. Because most of them master the technical side of the project management techniques, and they also manage how to work with their own team or how to work with people assigned to them or with key user, they tend to forget the rest of the organization that seems for many of them outside their zone of responsibility. What I have seen is project manager often considers themselves as a manager of the technical side of the project, and often considering that adoption is not in their zone of responsibility because it requires a totally different set of abilities. Often they consider that adoption is a role of local management. Well, let me tell you, unfortunately, this is wrong. You are judged on the success of the project, on the ROI of the project, and goodwill and adoption are key to ROI. And that is why change management exists. We work for and with project management to make the project a success by handling all aspects of adoption. And just to clarify, I display some day-to-day actions of a change manager, from selling a project, speaking to groups, honestly listening to others, being able to communicate with anyone wherever they are on the hierarchy. It can be the janitor, it can be the CEO, doesn't really matter. Being able to observe without preconceived idea, etc., etc., etc. But the main idea is a change rarely happens because a decision has been taken at the highest level, but it happens because one person manages it, driving it forward day by day. So, this being said, in change management, as in project management, we need a methodology. And you may wonder why. Well, in change management, it is extremely important because the effect of mistakes done are rarely visible immediately. And the methodology will keep you on track and will allow you to avoid mistakes. For example, let's say you forget to embark middle management before you embark that team on a project. Basically, there is a communication to everybody. What do you do when you do that? You make these people feel ignored, and they will have difficulties in helping you the day you roll out. Why? Well, because in the meantime, if their juniors have any question, who will they answer question to? To their manager. And if the manager has no answer because they discovered the project at the same time of their team, well, in order not to be ridiculous, they will back off. And unfortunately, this type of mistake you don't see at the moment you make the mistake. You see that at the moment of the rollout. And that is why you need a methodology that will lay out the proper sequence. As with project, people progress through different steps to accept change. And knowing what they are will help you ensure that acceptance and goodwill will arise. And there are several change management methodologies. That depends on the situation. Not all are good for all changes. For example, the first book you see on the left, which is called The 4 Disciplines of Execution, describes an excellent methodology, unfortunately not adapted to IT project. It is more, how can you make a whole organization increase engagement and work together toward a predefined goal, such as finding ways to have a better customer image, or how to give outstanding service. Management learns to group people in workshops to do problem solving. And because, of course, anyone who has found a solution is the best defender of the solution he himself conceived, this type of methodology is really good. It works really well, and it does change habit. Unfortunately, it's not adapted to IT project where few people design a software that will be used by many others. You need to create acceptance toward a solution created by others. So that would not be the correct methodology. For IT project, actually, we use ProCMP that we have developed, which means Professional Change Management Process. And I will explain it to you so you can use it yourself. It's fast, it's efficient, it gives good result for IT. And basically, it's the one which is described in the book, Relax, 6 Steps to Overcoming Resistance to Change in Your Projects. So just before, maybe you wonder something. Is it not the job of management to create acceptance? Well, yes, in theory, and no for many reasons. As far as IT projects are concerned, it is quite challenging because to manage a change, you need to have understood all the aspects and all the implications of the change. It's very difficult often for management to have all the ins and outs of the project, and therefore they cannot really explain it, answer questions, and so on. And many times did I see some wrong data given by managers who try not to look stupid and explain how a software will work, why it was not the way it will. No, there is another reason. If you have only one manager in a company that runs a change, he has been assigned the job of project manager or management or change manager, he may be either too high or too low in the hierarchy to make the change possible. If he's too low, Well, there will be acceptance by the lowest level of the hierarchy, but probably he will not dare going level +1, level +2, or +3 to push his change and to push his ideas. He will not dare do that. And now if he's too high, let's assume it's, I don't know, a country manager that run the change. People will not dare say what they really think. So there is a problem. And if he's, I don't know, somewhere in the middle, he can run probably all his own hierarchy, but he will not go to other departments. I can give you an example I have seen. There was a CRM that was developed by a big company. It was developed and it was handling, of course, all the sales problems and all the marketing problems. And the change manager they had put was a marketing director. Well, the marketing director could push ideas and sort of ensure people will be applying in his own department, but he has no power to help on the sales department. He leaves that to others. So he cannot really be transverse. And if you want to change and to go also, because there are also other possibilities, you want to change, go down the management line. So you push at the top level and you want the top level to go to the next level and so on. Well, that can be good, but not for IT project, because if the first one already doesn't really understand what the target system will look like, what it will be, imagine the information going down from people to people, at the end it's completely false. Another reason why management actually says they will create acceptance, but spend very little time, is that they have rarely time for that. And also, do they really understand change management? So we have a lot of issues if we want managers to do that. I don't pick of the fact that from time to time the hierarchy itself undergoes a change like others, and therefore will not sufficiently be external to the subject, and they might take it themselves with emotion. And another reason why it's so complex, and I will leave that. Basically, because a manager usually runs operation, they don't run project. And operation will always have the precedence, the priority. If there is a CRM and you have a sales manager who is running the project and sales are going down, I can guarantee he will handle his sales rather than being a change manager for the project. Now, the good point with them is that they can definitely enforce change. So it's difficult, they can enforce change, but the rest seems complicated. Well, so is it the job of the change manager to create acceptance? Well, yes, in theory, and also no for some reasons. He can be transverse, he can help each level of the hierarchy, he has the time to do that. Of course, he must master the change management process, and in computer science, he must know the target system. But contradictory to the management, he cannot enforce anything. So in IT, what I have seen, the best way to work is a change manager plus general manager who work in coordination. Authorities given by management and knowledge, help, coaching, understanding is by the change manager. So what is his job? I gave you some ideas, but basically a change manager is a project manager running the non-technical parts of the project. He's not dealing with programs. He's dealing with live communication and action. He's not dealing with computers. He's dealing with people. He's not dealing with bugs, but he's dealing with emotion or misunderstood. What else? He's not dealing with viruses, but maybe with bad word of mouth. And he creates acceptance at all level of management and with employees so that management can then drive the change because they have the authority. So I hope I make myself a little bit more clear on what it is. So I have a question for you now. I'm not going to ask, it might be too long in the chat, but I will give you a few seconds to think about it. Here's a question. What does not change in this world? Really look around. What does not change? Do you find things that do not change? Well, everything that has physical reality changes. And very interestingly, change is the most common, unusual thing you may encounter. And you have even a very well-known say from Buddha, who said in his wisdom, all things in this world are subject to change and destruction. This is the law of non-permanence. So it's interesting because change is everywhere. People are going young, older, very old, and die. If you look around your street and 20 years ago, how was it? If you look at Brussels, how it was, same stuff. So if it is so usual, why is it that we need to manage and handle emotions related to change? It seems illogical. Well, this is important. Despite all appearances, change is not the problem. Change is not the problem. The problem is the perception of this change that people have. The perception of the change is the real issue. For example, if the speed of change is not adequate or the magnitude of change is felt as too big or too slow, that will be the problem of people. Actually, change is something fully subjective because there are always two sides of change, the change itself and the feeling that the people get. I would like to show that. I'm going to ask you to consider something. Would you consider that if your office moved 10 kilometers away, it would be a change? I assume you are not anymore working from home, but let's say you're not working from home and you have another 10 kilometers away. I don't know if you would consider it a change, but I'm pretty sure if we were in a room, because I have done that so many times and asked for the people who consider it is a change, I would have some part of the room who would say it's a change and some part who would say, no, it's not a change for me. You know, the reality of it is we are speaking of a given change, but some of you would consider that it is a change, while some others would not consider it as a change. And people do not look really at the change, they look at their own considerations, their feeling, to decide if something is or is not for them a change. And since the feeling is more important than the change itself, you can influence the perception of change. The way you talk about the change or the project, the way you present your project, and the way you conduct your project will either increase or decrease the impression of change, and therefore will provoke or avoid resistance to change. I'm going to tell you two stories. One was very interesting. Just to show how you can change positively or negatively the importance of change. I was asked by a very big company, an elevator company, who was doing a big project to help them in their change management. And what they were putting was a system that would help facilitate the routes where to go from one place to another, to optimize actually the time they are spending on the car, and also to decide for them what needs to be first done, then done as either maintenance or repair. And they were used to define that themselves, actually. And that was creating a lot of emotion because people had their own goodwill and would handle their planning according to what they do in the evening. It was quite emotional. And I had been asked to help on that, and I started by doing a conference to all the middle management who were very much afraid of this situation because actually it was in France. And in France, it's an interesting factor. I don't know who amongst you are coming from France, but you can create a strike like that. People disagree, they immediately go on strike, and management was really afraid that the strike will happen because it touches all the people who are doing repair maintenance in elevators, and there were more than hundreds of people. So they were quite frightened, and I'm explaining actually during my conference, what is not changing? What is staying the same? Till at the end they say, oh, okay, it just help us finding the best way. Not a big deal. So I lowered the importance of the change. And then at the end of my lecture, the general manager in charge of maintenance knocks at the door and say, may I say something? I say, sure, he's a client. And here is what he says to his guy. He said, I hope you understood what was said at this conference, because this change is key for us. Actually, it has a very high impact, and you don't even yet see how much impact it will have. Do you think it raised or it lowered the impression of change? Of course, it raised it and it created fear. Or I give you another example, and I think it will be good and you will have understood it. Huge SAP deployment in a company. And the idea and the message pushed by communication was, it's not a problem, nothing will change, we are just automating some stuff, which might have been true or not. And because this project was so complex, they had these big drawings and flow charts and everything, and they needed a room and they couldn't find a room, and they took actually the canteen. On all the walls of the canteens were plenty of drawings, and everybody, when they were eating, were wondering, my God, how much of a change is that? Whereas the communication was saying something very different. Actually, these drawings were increasing the feeling of change. That's what I meant. The change is a change and the feeling is a feeling. And we have to differentiate that. So we must speak correctly of the change so as to describe it correctly, exactly, without any lie, while creating the impression or the feeling it is not a big deal. And usually we train managers and project managers to do that correctly because it's not so complex, but people don't think of that. And unfortunately, for most of you, for most project managers, what you may encounter is management who wants to show how important their projects are and who increase the feeling of change when it is absolutely not needed. So let's describe the sequence of change. Let's describe the methodology, and I would like to show the methodology so you understand it and to give you some tips and tricks that could help you. As I said before, you need a methodology that will lay out the proper sequence of action for you. And as you can see on the screen, you have actually 6 important steps that you need to perform. You find only 5, but it starts with culture and then it ends with culture. That's the start of the wheel and the end of the wheel. Okay, so I'm going to explain that. These steps are quite powerful and probably in part because they are very easy to understand. But to be successful and to implement it successfully, it requires a correct application of each sequence, not a quickie done. So as I said, the wheel starts at culture and finishes at culture. The first culture is the existing culture and the latter is the future culture. And to make it very simple, let's define culture as being the common agreement of a group that you can see in daily actions. And we mean then that the culture is just a shared habit of people on a given subject. I'm going to give an example to understand the culture. I had a customer whose culture of the coffee vending machine, because there is a culture of the coffee vending machine, it's not the culture in general, you know, was that all the people of the project were to take a coffee together. And the first one doing the queue will pay for everybody, and they arrange everybody and every day that it's not the same person. So at the end of the month, everybody has more or less paid the same. But it looks like you are inviting others. So that was their habit. That was a shared habit. That was their culture of the coffee machine. Well, imagine I arrive. Well, the first day I arrived, I did not know that. Unfortunately, I was not the first one. But when you pay your coffee and make something, imagine you are the first one, and then coming with a whole group, you pay your coffee and you go away. What do you think others will think of you? You are rude, okay? So that's a culture. A culture does not mean something which is for the whole company. It could be the culture, for example, of inputting data in a CRM. Maybe the habit and what people agree on is, well, CRM is just for manager and they are just looking at stats and it is of no use for me. And that is their culture that you will see in action. Then you will look at the reports or the visit report that the salespeople may have done, and it is full of useless data, or if it's empty, maybe of useless data also. So that's the way the wheel works. You start at culture, and then you go to perception, paradigm, behavior, habits. So this being said, let's take an example that I'm pretty sure have all experience, that I would call moving. And moving is a change. So I want to demonstrate that everybody go through this wheel. So this is the example. You live somewhere with your partner, wife, husband, whatever. And your partner wants to move. You can imagine that? But you are happy where you are. Let's say you live in the center of the city and he or she, your partner, wants to go in the field. Or the opposite, I don't mind. Okay? So the existing culture is where you live, all your habits, all your partner's habits, the family habits, that is what you are all used to and what you share in common. So the first thing to know, and the first thing to do once you know the culture, that you obviously know because it's your life, will be perception. Perception's purpose is to make you in a state of mind of accepting that moving could be an option. Not that you want to move, that moving could be an option. That's always the purpose of perception. Removing fixed idea and other possibilities could exist. Now, we have done that. Let's say your partner did not do properly perception with you, and your feeling is, well, I like where I am. I don't see why I would change. My home is my home, and I have been there for enough years, and there is no reason to change. And you are driving in the country with your partner who shows, oh, look at this house. Would it not be nice? What would you do? Not even look at it, I'm pretty sure. You have not yet decided that moving could be an option. And when in an organization perception did not get through, no message will get through, and you will always get wrong excuses. Like you may say to your partner, no, I don't like it, while in truth you have not even looked at the house. Okay, let's say your partner did do the things correctly, and you agreed that change could be a possibility, but you say, okay, yeah, it could be a possibility, but I have to like it, and I'm not sure I would say yes. Huh? Okay, perception is gone. Now, paradigm is how you shift paradigm. That means you can imagine and project yourself into the future. What about this house? And we have the same example. You go in the field, it's the same house. Your partners tell you, what do you think of it? You may say, I don't like it. But this time, it will very likely be your own feeling. No, you don't like this one. That does not mean you don't like moving. That means you don't like this one. And so honesty comes because perception has been correctly gone through. And then, okay, let's say it continues. I know I'm making a huge story. And then you decide one day that you are going to move. You have found the perfect house. You agreed. Now you are going to move. It's a behavior change. Okay. And when you change behavior, you go to the new house, you move. Actually, you cannot go back this wheel, while in true life you could go back. Huh? You cannot use an IT project. But okay, let's say behavior, you now are in your new house. Well, I can tell you something. You may be the best project manager. You can be the best whatever. You may have tried anything. You will discover that real life in this house might be something slightly different than what you imagine. Maybe it's way longer to get to job. Or maybe way faster than you imagine, or maybe the school is not good for the kids and there are a lot of drugs here and you need to bring the kids somewhere else, or maybe exactly the opposite. You may have planned, you may have prepared everything. When you arrive in behavior, real life is real life, and that is what you will discover. And there is change that needs to be performed at the moment you start. And if we were in project, you start your project. Now, okay, I'm continuing. You moved. Now you start to get used to your new home. It may take 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, and it becomes a new habit. And when all the family will have this new habit, you will have the new culture. I hope you understand this logic, because that is exactly what we do in change management. We ensure people go through perception, because if not, you will never have people that will help you create your new project. They will always find reasons why the project will not work. And then when they find a solution, they shift paradigm. I can tell you, the day you start your project with unwanted bugs, with the problem of too much to learn, with whatever, there will be difficulties. And there are specific actions to run people through behavior. And it's not because this project has started and everything is handled that it will. No, 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 no. You have to change the behavior and habits. Did you ever see, for example, a CRM project? I like this example of project because no CRM project can be enforced. You must get the acceptance of people. If not, you will never have good, reliable information in a CRM. Oh, so I said, okay, let's say we started a CRM. Behavior means people are starting using it. You handle that, and you come 2 weeks later, and people came back to the old system. Why? Because there was one person or two that started to do it correctly, all the others not, and it sort of cuts the goodwill of everybody. So what I mean, there are specific actions which are perception, paradigm shift, behavior, and habit that you need to run or to have somebody run for you if you want your project to be a success. Okay, so now, I want to give you a few hints because I hope you understand these steps better. And as I said, each step has a precise way of accomplishing its goal, and you cannot skip a step. Now, because we have little time, it's 22, and I want to leave some time for question. I want to stress a little bit on culture and give you some few data that should help you. And I take this step because it is where all starts, and it is also where most project managers make mistakes that will cost them part of the success and part of the image. Yes, I insist, for project manager, the most commonly missed step is the first step. Because if you want to change perception of change at one moment, you have better know what people think of the existing situation and what they think about a change. If not, how can you change their perception if you don't know them? Okay, so the next step not to miss will be perception, but for that, you need the proper data that you will get as the first step. Now, here is a hint I said I will give you. Most of the time, your exec sponsor will explain you the existing culture, and you may base your communication accordingly. Now, it's almost 13 years that I'm doing change management. And in all the change management projects that I have done, I only encounter once a company where top manager or top management really knew what happens in the real world for their employees. I'm going to give you something that happened last November. And that is an interesting experience because it shows how you could lose your project acceptance at this very first step. It's a CRM project run for all Europe, all countries in Europe, from the European level, the European strata, the EMEA strata. And the exec sponsor on the EMEA management and strata explain me all about the company and how salespeople are opposed to the CRM. They explain me that it has to be pushed by top management because of this disagreement, and therefore they had already laid out a plan and designed for me windows of communication to be delivered by the CEO himself. I had to prepare the correct message, and since the CEO speaks in public every 2 months, he would then add to his speech some messages matching my needs to create the acceptance. And that was part of the plan that was already designed by the European management strata. Now, knowing that top management does not know what happens in reality, I keep this rule of thumb, which is look, don't listen. So I did, and I went with some people in different countries to spend a day of their everyday life, and I discovered some very interesting factors. First, they were really opposed to their existing CRM. So I looked at it, and honestly, if I were there, I would be opposed too. It was slow, overcomplicated, overcomplicated, useless for most salespeople, but they were not opposed to a good CRM according to their goodness. And imagine the communication would try to sell the idea that a good CRM is useful. What would it do? Well, not only I would lose my time because it was already agreed, and I would lose their time, but I would demonstrate by doing this that I don't know the field. Imagine the CEO tries to explain that. He would be counterproductive. He would show, I don't know what you think. He would show, I don't know what you live. And you would go not forward, but backward in your product. Second finding was, who are they really listening to? Who is their opinion leader as far as sales is concerned, or as far as software is concerned? Well, their opinion leader was the sales director of the country. The general manager of the country was already too far away, and their perception of EMEA, European strata, European management was very simple. And it was, quote unquote, everybody knows that top management never quits their office and know nothing about the business. So do you think that creating a plan based on the option given to me would help the CRM project? No, it would have hindered it. So look, don't listen. And once you have looked what is, for in this example, the everyday salespeople life, you know what you know. And you are not anymore subject to what others tell you. You can defend your viewpoint and you can establish a proper change management plan. So this was the data. I think it's 45. So these were the best practice I wanted to share with you. I know it was fast. I know the time is short, but probably I want to keep the last 15 minutes for Q&A. So I'm open to that. Any question?
Thank you, Patrice. The Q&A session is now open. Please feel free to drop your questions.
I can't read the chat actually. Huh?
So far, we have not seen any questions yet on the chat panel. Okay. Here, I think we have the first question. Greg, could you take over?
How do you deal with
no problem. So the first question we have, sorry, my screen is messing up. First question coming in is, what are the most common, most difficult examples you have experienced in changing perception?
What are the most difficult things I have experienced in perception?
Yes, in changing perception at your client or at your project, I guess.
The most difficult thing that I observe is people think they do it when they don't. They confuse communicating about the project or on the project and changing the perception of the people. Actually, probably the biggest mistake is try to sell your project. Maybe one can realize that a project is a solution to a problem. You create a software because you have a problem somewhere. You create something because it solves an issue. But people are not aware of the issue. And what's the most common error is try to sell your software, which is try to sell the solution to people who are not aware there is a problem. The correct way, or one of the correct ways to do perception, is that people agree on the problem first. When we drill project managers, when we drill top management, first we ensure that they explain the real problem and that people agree, yeah, there is a problem, that's true. Oh, we don't have this software, or we are running like that. Oh yeah, we are losing against competition. And then you can sell your project, but you will have a first agreement that the situation or the existing situation must be solved. And that is very rarely done. People are so happy to present their project that they never sell the problem, they only sell the solution, and nobody is interested in the solution for no problem. I hope it helps. Any other question?
No other questions. Some positive sentiment, but ultimately, thank you for the response also from the question above.
Mm-hmm. I see questions that are popping out on a window, but it is a little bit too fast.
Yes, they're going rapidly. That means the participants have a lot of questions. Okay, there's one question from Martin Kuhn.
Yeah.
Who says, IT delivers new solution. Do you think a follow-up of change project should already be started in parallel of the IT project?
Sorry, I don't get what you say. The line is not really good. Maybe I can look myself on the chat if I can.
So Martin asks, IT delivers new solutions. Do you think a follow-up change project should already be started in parallel of the IT project or after?
Oh, okay. So what I usually say, I don't know if you say my face, okay, because I want to design something with my face. Okay, usually project management starts at the beginning. And for most of project manager, it stops when the project is delivered or a few weeks after. Change management starts a little bit later and continues a little bit later. So change management is not mandatory at the beginning. Usually when we do change management, we depends on the magnitude of the project, but let's say we are on an IT project and this project will be delivered in 1 year. Of course, people will know that there is a project probably 6 months before. So we start very slowly with very little action till the project starts to be designed and there is something to say. So no, it is not needed at the beginning. If change management is there at the beginning, it is a help, but it must definitely be there at the moment it is designed enough and that enough time has been spent so that people start to want to have answer and somebody must be able to deliver the answers. Actually, what people hate in any project is when there is a change and they consider that because now we are not so far from starting, there are still questions not answered. You know, 1 year before a project or at the very beginning of a project, nobody will be shocked if you don't have any answer yet on what will be the future system. But that is not true 1 week before starting. So if 1 week before starting you don't say things, that means you are hiding stuff. At the very beginning, if you don't say things, people will consider that normal because you are designing, because you don't know. So the more the project progresses, the more change management becomes important. But at the very beginning, it is not that important, despite what some others might tell you.
Another that I have is we have a question from Caroline. She would like to ask, how do you deal with staff members resisting change at all costs? So, you know, the people who really dig their heels in.
Well, yes and no. Yes, of course. But what does that mean at all costs? I have seen so many reasons why people might be resisting change. And the real question, is it legitimate or is it something else? So at all costs, I'm sorry, it's difficult to answer because it happened to me. For example, I'm going to give you another example where people were almost going on strike. Okay, very simple. It's a new cash register, and on this cash register for shops, actually they replace the system. So people at the cash register to take all the name and all the data from customers. And there was a huge resistance, actually, and nobody wanted, and it went up to top management. And I arrived the first day I start my project, and they asked me, you had top management on the left, you had representative from the cash register and from the finance explaining they will not do that. And of course, I start to look before listening, so I spent a few days at the cash register to see what people really had. And actually, they were right. They were right to resist because the only reason why they were resisting was because they were afraid to give a bad service to customer, not because they don't want the project. So I helped them and I helped management ensure it will be a very fast system. And one of their problem is, or was, basically, that they used to have such a system that was old and that had been given up because it was too slow. And top management had no idea because the sales director changed every 3 years, but the people who were at the cash register may stay 20 years. So they knew the old system and they knew it was creating negative impact. And they liked so much their companies, they did not want any impact. But seen from this discussion on top management, there was a huge resistance. And the reason of the old system being so slow is because the project manager had not or had under-evaluated the number of people who had the name first and last names. So if I'm looking for John Smith, who is buying something, and I have pages and pages and pages of John Smith, how can I put the correct information in the system? So they refused it. So the way around was say, okay, but now if we find something that would help you very fast to find the problem, the person, will that be a problem for you? And immediately the person said, no, of course no. We just don't want to have customers who are unhappy. So it looked like some people who really do not want to change. But unless you know why, and the real reason, not the appearance, but the real reason, sit with them and see if they are right or if they misunderstood something. You may try to handle a fake resistance or a false resistance, which is not resistance to change, but resistance to what they estimated being a bad project when it was not. Hope it helps. Any other question?
Oh, yeah. Is the change management project responsible for benefit realization as in the business case?
Oh, very interesting. Actually, the one who is responsible should be the project manager. I always considered that the change manager is a junior of the project manager, but usually he delegates many things, but you cannot have, and of course, he's partly responsible for that. One of the latest projects I was working on was to redesign the screen because it was so complicated. And I say, if you want to have real usage of the system and real ROI, one part of it is to have design properly done. Name of the field were confusing, stuff. People don't really understand the screen. I couldn't understand the screen myself. And say, okay, replace this name with that, and say, so yes, partly responsible, but under the project management, who is the project manager who ultimately is responsible for that. That's what happened in most of the companies. And it should be a good team. Project manager runs the technical part and has a junior who is a change manager who handles all the aspects. But one of the job of the change manager is to relay to the project manager what decisions should be changed, because it doesn't match what you find in the field. It will create problems. And usually because it's based on common sense, oh yeah, is my screen not really easy to read? There is never a problem with change manager. With project manager to change that type of design. And so They help the project manager to ensure there is good ROI. Any other question?
Yes, actually, quite a few. However, just because we're limited on time, I'm just going through. One thing that came up a couple times now is, do you have any tips on how to promote the change or how to convince people that the change is needed or there is a problem that should be tackled? So I guess it's maybe, what is your most successful methods for how you can initiate the change?
Well, basically, what I would say is very simple. If the people are not using what you are creating, there will be no ROI. And there are true reasons why people are not using it. And it does not lie under the technical factors. And if you don't handle these, your project, as good as it can be, will never be a success. So it is part, actually, of project management. And all those who know project management methodology, know change management is part of the job. So it's not an added part to the project. It's a part of the project that must be done. Now, some people think, you know, I will finish, I will have no time to develop that, but it happened to me that I even had to convince some generals in an army that they needed change management. And at the end of the conference, they told me, you're right, we never thought so. We thought giving orders would be enough, but it is not true. Most of the projects, if you want to have a success, you need to have goodwill. You need to have people trying to solve and bringing solution and be solution oriented rather than problems oriented. And without change management, any issue will be a very big problems because people don't want it. Okay. Anyway, if some people have questions, I left my my email, and I might have some time to answer.
Okay. Thank you so much, Patrice. Thank you, Greg, for managing it. We are close to the end of this session. Greg, it's time for the lucky draw. Were you able to identify or pick up one specific participant who could possibly won this lucky draw? Okay, I think he's already offline. Maybe he's muted. I can do the honors. Okay, I think it's Danny Ural is the winner of the today's lucky draw. Danny, are you still available? Can I unmute you for a few minutes? How do you feel, Danny, today? And what did you gain from this session? A few thoughts? Danny, you have been unmuted. You can speak now. Okay, I don't hear anything from Danny. I think there's some problem, technical problem. Okay, thank you so much, Patrice. I already see all of them leaving, and everybody have to go. Probably they have to continue their lunch or relax and think about 6 easy steps and you know, practically apply them in real-time scenario, on all their projects. Thank you so much, Patrice, and thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you also to the sponsors, Mind Mapping and ProSource, for making this event wonderful, and also to the session. And have a nice day. Thank you.
You
And
too.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.